Greetings, Mage fans, Pooka here. Today's episode is the first of two, possibly three compilations of recordings from last year's PAX Unplugged, made by Terry Robinson. This one consists of two interviews Terry conducted with creators in the expo hall, plus a conversation the two of us had with Mike of Darker Days Radio, with whom we gamed on that legendary weekend. Although some of the interview content may now be out of date, we wanted to do right by Terry's efforts and get this audio out into the world. With that, we hope you find these tidbits uplifting and illuminating, so on with the show.
Hi, Mage fans. It's your host, Terry Robinson with Mage, the podcast. Joining me today, live from PAX Unplugged, is the creator of Fifth Conspiracy. As listeners know, any game with the word conspiracy in its name that doesn't immediately turn into anti-Semitism is something I'm fascinated by. So, needless to say, this grabbed my attention. Joining me today is the creator, Stephen Koontz, and we're going to talk about Steve's game. Stephen, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. This has been an amazing convention.
I'm glad. I frequently describe Philadelphia as like Chicago if it hated you, so I'm glad it's being okay to you so far.
No, it's been lovely. I mean, the weather's a little cold, but I live in Phoenix where it is 70 degrees at the moment, so it's a bit nippy for me here. But other than that, the convention, the people, the games on demand folk have been absolutely awesome.
That's good. That's good. So what is Fifth Conspiracy?
Fifth Conspiracy, well, it's a collaborative storytelling tabletop role-playing game.
Okay.
And the core conceit of the game is, what if everything people believe in is real because people believe in it? And the more that they believe in it, the more real the thing becomes.
Well, that is the fundamental contrivance of Mage the Ascension.
Yes.
So I feel like we may have some things to talk about here. Are you also familiar with the comic Department of Truth?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Actually, there is some of that DNA in Fifth Conspiracy.
Okay. So what do you then do in Fifth Conspiracy? What do the player characters, if there are any, what's kind of their goal?
Well, the idea is that you're a conspirator. You are a member of the gods or the fairies or the aliens or the monsters.
Oh, okay.
And in kind of a traditional urban fantasy trope, you're in this world surrounded by things that are supernatural but on the surface blend in and look normal. So the struggle of Fifth Conspiracy is, how do you go about being the supernatural creature with its own needs in a world that doesn't always have a place for it?
Now, you had made mention that the creatures that exist, or the conspiracies that come into existence, mirror human thought, or
Absolutely.
mirror what we in Mage would refer to as the consensus.
Yes.
Or the masses, if you're a technocrat. A lot of those don't have great origins to them, in terms of them also often hitting ethnic or racial tropes to it.
Absolutely.
Once you are incepted, once you are a being that begins to exist in the world, how much autonomy do you now have from the belief that spawned you?
That is the choice of every player.
Okay.
So one of the choices that you continuously have to make is, the more idea you are, the more powerful you become.
Okay.
And the more of your free will you surrender in the process. So fairies can't lie.
Okay.
The more fairy you are and the less man you are, your ability to lie decreases and decreases to the point where it starts making you sick. To ancient, incredibly powerful fairies, they lie, they die on the spot. They just drop dead. Right? It's the same thing if you got turned into a vampire. At first, sunlight is something you're allergic to, and then as you become an ancient vampire, someone opens a window across the room from you,
and suddenly ash.
And the scattered sunlight scorches your skin.
Okay.
Right. And that is a choice that the players get to make every time they go over this kind of progression mechanic, which is like they go through a milestone. Their character grows and changes, and they have to make a choice. Do I get more powerful and thus become a little less human, or do I side grade slightly?
One of the things you said, you used the phrase, when you become a vampire. Is that unique to them because they are contagious? Can one become a fairy, or do you merely begin the game as the conspiracy, supernatural, urban fantasy archetype?
So all of the lore for the whole game is written from the perspective of characters. So there's nothing definitively true about the context of the game, outside of the fact that some of them have stats. You know, there are some mechanical things, but all of the trappings around it I leave you oftentimes multiple viewpoints of characters talking about the truth of the nature of what it is to be a supernatural being, and they disagree with each other.
Okay.
Right? So, for example, the gods believe that there is a distinct difference between them who have children, and that is how you get more gods, and a vampire who, gives someone their blood and kills them. Right? That makes them fundamentally different things, where you have scholars who would say, no, there isn't actually a difference. Everyone has to choose to become what I call the supernatural consensus is oratum, which is a Latinization of those who are worshipped. Right. Okay. And that is the colloquial term that they use to refer to themselves, because there's so many different types of things that they couldn't find just one polite way to refer to everything. So they invented one to make everyone happy.
Is it the case, though, that they are aware of this consensus effect, that they are bound seemingly by the beliefs of humans?
I would say that there are some who do, and there are many who suspect, and there are many who don't believe it at all.
Okay.
Regardless of whether it's actually true and binds them or not, they don't believe it.
And the game is Fifth Conspiracy. We've talked about what I would call supernatural types.
Yes.
Are there other types of entities represented within the game? Can you play investigators or the mundane, as it were, or are there creatures that just don't hew necessarily to that type that are still playable within Fifth Conspiracy?
I've run multiple games where somebody asked me that exact question of, can I just be a person? And the answer is absolutely yes. In a game with an angel and a boogeyman, right, I had just a person who got a little too deep and peeled back the veil and figured out that there was a whole supernatural world underneath, and put themselves in tremendous danger by digging too deep, right? They figured out too much information.
And kind of what is the core play loop? Like, what settings can either just kind of be sandboxes, but most kind of tilt you in a direction? And what kind of style of play, or what are the natural stories that come out of playing a character in Fifth Conspiracy?
Yeah, so it's urban fantasy, and fans of that trope, from Dresden Files to Buffy the Vampire Slayer to Harry Potter. There's a supernatural world thinly veiled behind the mundane, and you have to navigate that space between those two worlds. That's, I think, the heart and soul of the game, with this idea that you then also have to balance how human and how idea you are. And then I think the thing that really sets Fifth Conspiracy apart as a game is you don't have to play it just one way. And one of the things that I experienced, especially with new groups or groups who are branching out into new games, is they tend to have a phenomenally high fail rate to actually succeed at telling the story that they were hoping for. Either it runs out of momentum, or there's disagreement about how to tell the right story, or somebody's injecting or forcing one type of story and somebody else wants a different kind of story, and the game fails, sometimes explosively fails. And so I really wanted to create a tool that helps people align their expectations before the story actually starts.
Okay.
And I call that the premise document. And in the premise, the game facilitator, who I call the director, comes up with the setting, they come up with the inciting incident, they come up with the tone, themes, and genre. So it's all very well spelled out. And this inciting incident then gets presented to the players. For example, we have a murder mystery in a yuppie beach town in Northern California, and a dead body washes up on the beach, right? And the great thing about this system is I, as the director, I don't need to know who the dead body is. I don't need to know why they were killed, because if I knew that already, the story wouldn't be about the characters. But if all the players sat down and made characters without having this premise, they're going to be pointed in 5 different directions, and it would be very difficult for me to wrangle them into a cohesive story. So it solves this dichotomy of plot and character in a way that they create their characters inside this constraint, and then I get to take whatever they tell me. Oh, the dead body, that was my wife. Well, she was my business partner. Oh, I'm the killer. I'm the one who murdered her, right? And then I get to take all of the player's choices, which I call needs. So their character doesn't just want to be involved in the story, they need to resolve the story. And with those stakes, it becomes very easy for me to put them together into a very compelling story that's about them, and they're all pointed conveniently in the same direction to tell a unified story together.
That seems like a contrivance that could work for nearly any game.
Right.
What do you feel makes it fit so well for Fifth Conspiracy or urban fantasy in general?
I hope people steal it and put it in every game, because I think it is one of the best tools I've ever made.
Okay.
That being said, it works particularly well because it's baked into the DNA of Fifth Conspiracy right from the beginning. It also plays into how character creation works as well. But when you ask, like, well, how do you play Fifth Conspiracy? Well, you could play the vampire, the zombie, the werewolf, and the witch as a Friends comedy show, right? Or you could play it as an investigation Cthulhu-style mystery of something spooky has gone wrong in the sewers. Or you could do high politics. But the great thing about the premise document is you know that going into it. You know what style of game you're going to play with this urban fantasy as the background.
And then with that premise document, the difficulty I find is not that a game turns into a comedy, but that it turns into a farce.
Right.
That it just kind of it just kind of breaks. You mentioned that it was baked into the DNA. Are there systems that kind of reward or reinforce that premise, or a style of play that don't demand but kind of direct, tease, or promote play to fit within the genre the table may have chosen beforehand?
Yeah, so the goal is to tease out what I call premise rejection. So we're playing the horror game, and you have the guy who doesn't actually really want to play the horror game. It makes them uncomfortable, so they make the comedic character and keep force injecting comedy into it. I want to have the conversation that they're not comfortable with horror before we start telling the story.
Yeah.
That is the ideal time. And so when is the time to resolve those things? Well, hopefully right from the beginning.
Okay.
That's the goal of the premise document. How does it help you after the fact? Well, because you've agreed to the premise. When we've started to play, you've signed your name to, it's not quite a contract, but it is an agreement, right? An agreement.
It's a social contract.
It's
at
a
minimum,
social
yes.
contract. Like, people don't seem to have a problem signing an agreement to play in a soccer league. But one of the things that I find that the premise document does is it makes people take it seriously. Oh, you want me to play every Friday night? Well, sometimes I get called into work. Well, that's really good to know now, and not 2 weeks from now when you can't make it and everyone's sitting here with
So
beer and
you've
pizza.
created a GM toolbox masquerading that happens to have a game attached to it. I'm glad.
That may be the origin story of Fifth Conspiracy, actually.
There's I can get some of your character backstory in the dislikes of that. Every game has a type of wish fulfillment baked into it, even if it's not explicit. For instance, the game Invisible Sun is a Monty Cook surrealist cipher system game. The wish fulfillment there is not that you're a wizard, but that every character is presumed to be independently wealthy. It seems as if the wish fulfillment here is having that group where there is some expectation of how this is going to unfold over time.
My super aspirational goal is to create tools that help people tell better stories, right? I want everyone to have that feeling of just clicking with a group of people and telling a story that, you know, there's entertainment and then there's art. I want to help people tell stories that are meaningful to them, that like impact them in ways that stick with them. They're the stories that you remember 5-10 years later, and you rehash them at Denny's at 2 a.m. with a group of people that you end up becoming close friends with because you've shared this experience. That's what I want to make.
And to that end, so we've come up with our premise document, we've created our characters. How does the game try and keep that then going?
Yeah, so one of the things that I caution against in the director's section of the book, the game facilitator, is we know our beginning point. We have an inciting incident. Dead body washes up on the beach. We know we have our end point. Identity of the villain is revealed. They get captured and brought to justice. So we have a beginning point, we have an end point. And what the aspiring author and all of us wants to do then is to write the entire story, to know every major beat that's going to happen the entire path. And a lot of new game facilitators, dungeon masters, game masters,
storytellers,
yeah, they want to have that control, and you need to surrender that control, right? That control is a farce. You are collaboratively telling the story, right? If you know the answers, there's no point in playing the game. And so the idea is then to, instead of knowing what's going to happen next, coming up with 3 kind of what I call tent post problems. We have our first tent post, we have our last tent post. What are the other tent posts that we need to drape the rest of the story on top of? So I suggest come up with 3 things. So if we have our athletic jogger character who found the dead body, and they're the neighbor of this person. So it looks super suspicious that not only did they find the body, but they're the neighbor. Well, we go to that character's deep need. And their deep need is they're a college burnout. They were an athlete. They blew out their knee and are now a bartender at 40. And they feel like the greatest moments of their lives are behind them. So I look at that and I go, okay, our murder has something to do with their former university. In fact, the fraternity that they belong to are going to be an evil cult. So now I have a tent post of that character has to return to their fraternity and the best moments of their lives in order to find out the truth of what happened in this murder, right? So I tie the B plot of that character's deep needs to the A plot of the inciting incident, which is the murder. And I try and weave those 2 things together for all the characters.
The way you're describing it, I'm getting a bit of a, is it a dessert topping or is it a floor wax? How does this then interface with the fact that you may be a gray alien and I may be a fairy?
Absolutely. So the premise could be anything, right? So the inciting incident could be...
You were just using something mundane to make it easier to track. Okay.
Right. It could be the count of your city has called a gala and everyone's getting together and they've been cloistered away since COVID and nobody's seen them. And this is their first outing. And it's going to be a big deal. There's going to be big political shakeups for the first time in years. That could be your premise. But I don't actually know why the count was hidden away until the players tell me. Whatever needs they come up with, that's what I craft around. And I suggest for my directors out there, come up with 3 tent posts and have them point at each other. So if you go to the university first, it's going to point to the bank where there's missing money, which is going to point to the 3rd tent post, whatever that is. And it's going to tie the characters together, weave their needs together into a single thread so you can tell a cohesive single story that is vitally important for all of the players' characters to participate in at the same time.
Okay. Now, switching back a little bit to what you actually play at the darn table.
Yeah.
Is there anything in here that you think urban fantasy fans would be like, oh, that's an interesting take, or, oh, I haven't seen that presented that way, that you're particularly proud of?
So I'm a big World of Darkness fan, right? I love Mage, I love Vampire, I love Werewolf, I love Changeling. Like, these are amazing games. I've played them a lot, I've run them a lot. I would be lying if I didn't say their influence was also in 5th Conspiracy. But one of the promises of the World of Darkness that I believe falls flat is this idea that you have this world populated by a menagerie of creatures and that they can interact with each other. Because mechanically, when you put the werewolf and the mage and the vampire in the room together, depending on the given amount of XP on each of those character sheets, they don't play. They don't balance well mechanically. It doesn't function either at all, or it doesn't function smoothly.
Yes, it is both mechanically difficult to balance them and narratively difficult to balance them.
So my idea was, what if everything, not just vampires, but what about angels and aliens and, cryptids and monsters, dragons, elves, and dwarves? What if all of them are real and they have a unifying mechanical underpinning? So not only are they mechanically balanced, but they exist in a universe where they all know about each other and they have a magical government in which they all have to live underneath the yoke of.
Okay. So that is a political solution to the question of how do you balance entities and factions and so on within it, or at least a political framework.
Yes.
And that's kind of where the gaming and the politicking begins. Well, thank you for the run through so far. If people are interested, or this sounds interesting to someone, how can listeners follow up and learn more about 5th Conspiracy?
Well, the easiest place to find us is at aedpublishing.com. There is a link to our Discord community if you're interested in playing or chatting with folks. It is relatively easy still at this point to get into the beta playtest.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested in getting a copy of the playtest document and reading through it or giving it a spin, I'm especially looking for storytellers. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of players at this point, but I only have a handful of people who are running the game.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear, I made a tool that is my perfect tool for running games.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know how it works for you.
Got it.
How does it work for your group without me being in the room?
Yeah, the deadliest moment for a game is when it goes from the creator's table to literally anyone else's.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
just to repeat that, Alpha Epsilon Delta Publishing, AED.
Yep.
Because audio is hard.
Yes.
And half of people are probably listening in their car while jogging.
You can send a email directly to info@aedpublishing.com. But honestly, the Discord is pretty active. We have a pretty active community of people actively playing the game. So if you're at all interested in it, I'll also be at multiple conventions. I'll come back to PAX. I have so much fun at this convention.
Okay. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you nothing but success with your game.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Mage fans. This is your host, Terry Robinson with Mage, the podcast. Joining me today is Jared from the Bodhana Group. Most of our listeners are going to be familiar with their association with PAX Publishing. We know that you're a firm that uses games to help people, as I will say broadly. Can you tell us a little bit more about your mission and operations?
Yes, absolutely. The Bodhana Group is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that specializes in using tabletop role-playing games and tabletop board games in therapy, education, and skill development.
What does that look like? Can you walk me through, for instance, a concrete example maybe of maybe a group that needed assistance and maybe a game you used or a system or set of therapies that you used to assist that group?
Yes, absolutely. So, and I will try to do this as briefly and concisely as possible because our services are actually rather eclectic.
Okay.
Because on one hand, we do offer direct services. We do actually provide therapy services to individuals and groups. On another hand, we also offer consultation services and training services to other professionals in this field that would like to learn about how it is that we do what we do. Again, on another hand, even, we actually will sometimes partner with other agencies or organizations that maybe would like to have this kind of service offered, but don't quite have the staff or the training or expertise to do it themselves. So we will often go out and work with them as well. I myself, as one of our therapeutic game masters and as one of our trainers, have my finger in lots of pies in that. Once a week, I work with our executive director, Jack Birkenstock, where we run our 15-week-long course teaching clinicians and educators and community leaders on the Bodhana model of therapy blended tabletop role-playing games, which is a wonderful course that teaches not just all of the theory behind what it is that we do, but also culminates in our trainees actually building their own 2-hour therapeutic one-shot and running it for each other in the group to get that hands-on experience as well. At the same time, I also run multiple therapy groups with another co-facilitator from the Bodhana Group. I have a group of adults that meets on Monday evenings, and I have a group of youth aged about 8 through 12 that I work with on Saturdays. There are a number of other groups like that other therapeutic game masters with Bodhana work with as well. In those groups, the therapy looks a little different depending on the co-facilitator. One thing that separates us from other nonprofits that practice similarly to us is that our model focuses on the idea of stretching the game to fit the therapy and not stretching the therapy to fit the game. This is group therapy first. And as such, any clinician who's engaging in group therapy is going to lean on whatever theories or modalities it is that they use in their practice. And we specialize in teaching individuals on how to use tabletop role-playing games and stretch them to integrate one's therapeutic practices within that. Myself, I am a social constructionist narrative therapist. So I pull a lot from thinkers and writers like Epstein and White, or Anne Kacknocker, Sue Jennings, English drama therapists that use social constructivism in their work with play therapy. And I use that to inform how I craft my games and engage my players in challenges that look for markers that align with that theoretical orientation.
Can you walk me through a hypothetical specific one? Like just give it a example of this is a group and this is literally the game we play and this is how we've modified it to suit our purposes.
Absolutely. We were using Dungeons and Dragons with that Saturday group that I mentioned. Now, most of the time, I typically stray away from Dungeons and Dragons when I'm using it for therapeutic purposes because I find that the clunkiness of the intense combat mechanics can do more to take away than they can to actually help. But this group of young individuals were ones that all came from a Dungeons and Dragons background in history. They were very invested in it.
They already spoke D&D.
They already spoke D&D, and there was clinical reasoning. Go, you know what? There's no point trying to drive them away from that. If that's where they're at, and that's where we can go ahead and meet them, then that's where we went. So we were playing Dungeons and Dragons. I had one youth who were referred to by their character name, which was Toilet Water.
Okay.
His character name was Toilet Water, and every time he made a new character, for whatever reason, if we were transitioning games or campaigns, he would always name his character Toilet Water every single time. And as a clinician, those are the kinds of questions you start asking yourself. What is up with the name Toilet Water? Why is this so important? He's very adamant. Every character had to be that. I tried, some gentle nudging. Well, maybe let's work toward the name that seems a little bit more in line with the names of your fellow players, or in line with sort of the world that we're building here, or one that might make sense. Or why would your character be called Toilet Water? Let's work on some backstory concepts to make that make sense a little bit. A fair amount of resistance there, until finally I pulled him into a breakout room and I said, "Now, bud, help me understand this." And what I learned through that conversation was that he originally created the first ever character, Toilet Water, that he played because he wanted to explore this idea of worthlessness.
Okay.
Now, when you're a narrative therapist, you're looking very much for thematic meaning, right? That told me the idea of worthlessness was something he had experienced in his life or something that he cared about, and he needed to use these games to explore that and derive suitable meaning out of it, and that hadn't quite happened yet.
Okay.
So I said, I'll tell you what, work with me to come up with a new character for you whose name will not be Toilet Water, but I will develop this character's backstory with you so that it is chock full of this idea of worthlessness, and we can make that a huge part of this character's journey in our adventure. We ended up creating a character named Kazakan, who was a barbarian that was very, very bullied even from a young age by his clan because he was unable to rage. And that's why they even called him the slur Toilet Water. And he went on this adventure where he actually sort of dove into this barbaric, do what I want, when I want, consequences don't matter. His character actually ended up dying because his character essentially murdered another PC in broad daylight, was taken in by the guards, and decided I wanted to go down fighting. I'm skipping over a lot of details in here and how my co-facilitator and I actually gave him a lot of choice in how this happened and said, hey, these are the kinds of choices that, if you're going to make this kind of story that's going to happen from it. Do you want to use the rewind button on the script change remote? Do you want to make some different choices? No, you really want to play this out? Phenomenal. Let's do that. Your character's probably not going to get to continue adventuring with a party because it just wouldn't make any sense at this point. How do you want that to happen? Do you want him to be exiled? Do you want him to escape and just sort of go off in the wilderness? He said, no, I really want my character to go down fighting. We said, fine, absolutely. That happened. We were able to do a character. He said, I want my character now to be a character that is actually purposefully there to provide support for the team. I've done what I needed to do in exploring this idea of worthlessness and doing whatever I want, whenever I want. I now want to try something different, and that's more meaningful to me now. And that's an example of how, even though you may see something that will look like a behavioral maladaptation or something that just seems like writing off, when you're approaching it with the therapy-first mindset, and you can actually identify how that correlates to your theoretical orientation and go, let's explore this a bit and give a youth a chance to explore something that's important to them through the safety and distance of play, which is very much what we want to do here, you can see amazing things happen. This youth that before in the tabletop community would very much have been described with words such as, murder hobo or troll, is now one of our top most supportive players.
So it sounds like when I run a game, I'm going to have a session 0 where we go over theme and mood. It seems like in this case, if you're using it for therapeutic purposes, you almost have a session -1 where your goal is to figure out who your customers, your therapy recipients, the whatever term of art is used for the people that you're attempting to help, where you kind of figure out what are we trying to get out of this, or what are some reasonable goals in play that we could have? What does that look like? Does that just come from already having experience with the participants or some other process?
So depending on one's practice and depending on one's goals, it could look a little differently, right? If you're coming at this from the perspective and standpoint of an educator, as opposed to a therapist or a clinician, or even from a community leader, you're going to have different goals of why the group even exists. And that's going to alter things, right? But just to give you the most lived experience that I have, I primarily come at this from the perspective of a clinician, from a therapist, right? So for me, depending on the organization, the logistical nature of what I'm doing, I'm either going to have a treatment plan that I will have access to from that client's individual therapist, because I'm usually providing supplementary group services, or if I am the primary clinician of that client, and maybe this is just sort of the only therapy they're engaging in through, like, say, Bodhana, I will write their treatment plan. And that usually looks like having a meeting with them and a parent, or some kind of sit down beforehand that would be just like general screening processes you would see in any group therapy practice. Just get an idea of, hey, what brings you to therapy? What are some of your goals that you want to work on? Let's work on your biopsychosocial. Let's make sure that we know what we're doing here, right? And so that's even like your, like, section -1. That's like your individual meetup. Hey, you're going to play with us, right? Then you get to that session where you sit down with a group and go, so here's our group. Here's what we're doing. Here's what this looks like when you're approaching it from a therapeutic perspective. Having informed consent is very, very important. So having them all sit down together and go, here's what this process is going to look like. Now that we're all here and now understand this and all agree to this, we're all good to go. Phenomenal. What are our goals? What are some things we can share with the group about what we want to achieve here? What are some of our favorite stories or pieces of media that we've loved to consume, right? What are our favorite books, TV shows, comics, anime, anything like that? And I'll usually go around, combine what information I get from that with what information I have about their treatment goals, and then use that to help guide decision making on, well, what game are we going to play, right? Are we going to default to Dungeons and Dragons? Or if I have a group that's interested in high fantasy, but I don't really have the time to work out through, like, teaching all of the dice mechanics, I may lean into Dungeon World, Powered by the Apocalypse, which is a lot simpler to teach and roleplay through in terms of dice rolling mechanics. Great, we still get the high fantasy, right? Or if I have a younger group that maybe is a little apprehensive about role-playing and high fantasy Tolkien style stuff feels a little more intimidating, maybe I'll look at Pugmire, which, again, we have the Onyx Path Publishing, the folks that the anthropomorphic dogs, right? Again, I see a lot of this at the residence treatment center that I work at as well, is I have a lot of teenagers, ages like 13 through 17, typically teenage women or feminine presenting. And they'll be like, well, I have a lot of interest in high school drama. I have a lot of interest in horror and psychological thriller. And I go, great. Sounds like we're setting ourselves up for a game of kids on bikes. Right? And so that part of the process ends up looking like that -1, because it's not even just, hey, here's sort of our expectations and boundaries and safety tools and all the things that do need to be discussed, but it's also what game we play in.
So 2 other questions. One, I'm at your booth. You are vending ducks. What's the origin of those?
So the origin of the ducks, I hate to say, I'm not going to be able to speak to as precisely. What I do know is that I believe it was about, how many years ago would my friends here with me say? Here, I'm going to pass this over to one of our friend Dave.
So basically what happened with the ducks is at the first Save Against Fear, they wanted a handout to give everybody that came, like a little grab bag. So we did the dice bags with a die and a duck inside. And then that turned into a huge hit. People were trying to buy the ducks by themselves. Trading ducks with other people to try and get the ducks they wanted, because they were random in those days. And then it just kind of caught on. So subsequent years, we got new and different ducks, and then people were trying to collect more and more ducks. And then we started to come to conventions, and to raise money, we started to sell the ducks.
Well, thank you. And I guess my other question is, what does Bodhana mean in the Bodhana Group?
So that is actually referencing our executive director, Jack Birkenstock, and his history and passion for Buddhist psychology. I, unfortunately, am not the Buddhist psychology expert to give you the fine details of Bodhana itself, but we do see how that ties into the tree above Bodhana with that tree of life.
Similar to the Bodhi tree under which the Gautama received enlightenment or something? Or
you could probably tell me a lot more about that then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking. And if people are interested, there's a couple of ways to engage. One is they can support you directly or support projects that you've done. Another is if someone is a practitioner who is interested or works with a practice group and would like to participate in that 15-week course that you had made mention of, how can people do both of those things?
I absolutely recommend visiting our website, thebodhanagroup.org. There we have all the information about, who we are, what do we do, but there are also pages on there that point out, here's all of our trainings that are coming up, here are the dates in which those will be happening, here's the different price ranges for different levels of engagement for those trainings. I would also highly recommend, if you're not seeing something that you're looking for specifically on there and have any further inquiries, send an email to the Bodhana Group at gmail.com. Jack Birkenstock, as we've mentioned, is very, very active in terms of engaging people. He is a very conversational, hey, let's work something out. We have organizations that maybe might want to arrange a training for their employees, and we don't have just the exact kind of package on there. He'll work with them, right? He, another one of our associates, James Kirk, regularly have been driving to Ohio from Pennsylvania lately to provide board game trainings for an organization there that wanted to arrange something.
And finally, I know you had recently finished up the Kickstarter for Branch Riders. How can we get our hands on that when it's available out into the world?
I would absolutely recommend that you visit our Kickstarter page, and a lot more details can be found there.
Yes, and you've already done extensive conversations on the Pathcast. Link to those interviews will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, gentlemen, so much for your work.
No, thank you so much for having us.
Testing.
Oh no, you're golden.
I have a voice.
32-bit float makes up for all sins. It is just, those two microphones are so much more comically sensitive than this one is.
Terry, I've committed a lot of sins. I mean,
I do like the idea, like, welcome to detention center. It has been 12 months since your last confession or something like that, like combining the two. What if we combine two things people hate, detention and Catholicism? Surely this will work. Welcome to the detention center.
Yes.
How we all doing?
Detended. Well, not really. You're probably more detended, and you will be, because you've actually been doing games. So.
The detention begins.
Yeah.
In 45 minutes.
But yeah, the detention center was the name that I think Pook proffered first for the group of Old World of Darkness fans between Darker Days Radio and Mage the podcast and Changeling the podcast that wanted to run games at PAX Unplugged, because what better way to spend time at a place you paid to be at than to run games for other people?
Exactly, yeah. And that's really the big thing. I'm an enforcer here, so I'm also volunteering to work here and run games for people and not enjoying the con at all. I played For the Queen for 45 minutes, so that's going to be the extent of my personal gaming.
That's a game. That's a game. All right.
Okay.
Yes.
For the Queen, we attempted to play For the Queen.
Did we?
Really?
Yes. You were over, and we were just trying to kill time beforehand.
That's
and you're
right,
like, this is stupid, and you all should feel bad. And I'm like, I've never had...
It's just a yes-and game.
Normally, yes, but there are people that have like a certain kind of crunch they want from a game.
Oh, indeed.
And it does not provide that.
No.
You're like,
Zero
well,
crunch.
I have a sentence now, the game. The thing is, there's a second edition that just came out, and I'm like...
That's what I played.
What? How do you do an edition for a game like that? They're like, hey, tic-tac-toes, new patch notes are out.
Last time I played For the Queen was like 8 years ago, so I don't really remember. But it has an X card, which I don't remember being there before.
No, it was.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't do anything.
You were just playing.
Art,
you were playing
art.
For the Queen after dark, apparently. In that other time.
That's more of an expansion than a new edition, though, isn't it? Like that's like
now with more hot Queen action.
Yeah, it's a lot more sexy queens, you know.
Oh, okay.
But we played with the cranky old queen, which I do remember from the first edition.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything about the game except
yes, I know.
Yeah.
That was evident while you were playing it.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, what am I doing now?
Are you sure that was me?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. This was we were doing that I think in immediately before killing time before either Invisible Sun or I can't remember what other one it would have been.
Invisible Sun clearly just like blew that out of my memory's water. So
my memory's water.
You saw the black hand and you could not remember anything else.
So my spouse is in Yellowknife, Northwest Territory, where I think today's low was -28 Fahrenheit.
So what is she doing there?
Experiencing Yellowknife.
Just
so the funny part is
hiking,
like
skiing, staying in a lodge,
mostly staying alive,
wrestling miners and lumberjacks.
MINOR, MINER.
why not both?
But she wanted to go someplace very cold, and she achieved that. But like, again, even when you're in these far northern communities, like they still need to have everything. So I have this basic thesis that west of the Mississippi, if you're a town of over 25,000 people, you have to have a shitty history museum. You have to have a shitty nature museum. You have to have you have to have everything because there's nothing else within 5 hours on average.
I've been. Wait, Vicksburg's to the east of the Mississippi, isn't it? I've been to Vicksburg though.
Okay. And it's same thing here. So like she's going to visit the little cultural center. There's a swap meet there.
Surely there must be Aurora Borealis at this time of year.
240 days of the year, yes.
Wow.
On average.
That'd be cool.
So all the signs are in French, what for it being Canada, Dene, the local First Nations language, and a lot of them are in Korean because apparently Yellowknife is a very common tourist destination for people from South Korea who would like to see the aurora and don't want to have to deal with Russia. And given the choice, given the choice between Canada and Russia, I know which one I'd pick almost
Makes
regardless
sense.
of where on the planet I am. So she was just sending me a picture, and she's like, "None of these are helpful to me." and Julia, my Miss Mage the podcast, has a fighting familiarity with French. We were able to survive in Paris for a week, largely speaking French.
Oh wow, good.
So we were there, but she's like, the sign says it's in French, but this is clearly someone who did not speak French particularly well that had to produce a French sign. So she's like, Terry, have you ever seen this grammatical construct? I'm like, no, Google Translate doesn't even know what to do with that. So that was kind of fun.
So getting back to the detention center.
Yeah. Well, your mention of French, Terry, actually, I have a question. And you may have done a Mage the podcast episode on this, but this is me dragging us back to talking about role-playing games. Have you read / would you want to do a recording on the 2 M20 French supplements?
Oh, yeah, if I could get my hands on it.
I do have them.
Okay.
So,
I did I tell you about getting the 40 tarot decks from Arcane?
you did, yes.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have one already, I would take
I
one off.
Again, I know enough French to do violence.
Okay.
And that's to spite someone on the internet. But, yeah. So the detention center was, I think, originally Mike's idea.
No, Terry, it was your idea.
Oh.
But we came together because you were like, hey, why don't we run some World of Darkness stuff? Well, it started off as let's try. Let's try Changeling of the Lost. Let's try Mage the Ascension. Let's try some other games. I was like, that's great. But somehow it came to us just being like, let's run a bunch of World of Darkness games that are unpublished for many, many years. And
M20 is still getting releases.
Here we go. You're running M20, but we have Changing the Lost hasn't had anything in a while. Changing the Dreaming hasn't had anything in a couple years
now. Yeah.
You know, for C20, you're probably running C20, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because
you don't want to have attendees touching your bunk cards or anything like that.
no, I'd be fine with people shuffling my bunks. But also, I think it grew from when we talked last year when we had this little confab. It was kind of remarking on wow, there's just no World of Darkness games. And
very little RPGs, except for 1 or 2 publishers that ran their own.
Yeah. There was a lot of Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition last year. But, there's such a wide breadth to the World of Darkness that I think we all agreed that we should run some other things. Yeah. And we all showed up, and 80% of it, 90% is Mage. Yeah. But all sorts of Mage. That's the exciting thing.
Yes.
We have Mage the Ascension, but what else do we have? We have Mage.
Sorcerer's Crusade.
Dark Ages Mage.
What crazy person is running that?
I am.
Whoa.
Because it is my favorite Mage, which I played a lot of, actually. Yeah. I really like
Awakening?
I haven't actually played Awakening, so...
I just kind of assumed. In my head, everyone on Darker Days Radio has played every Chronicles of Darkness game 17 times or more.
There's some gaps in there. No Mummy of the Resurrection, which, when I was doing
We thought about that.
when we were doing the Let's Try thing, it was supposed to be also games that you haven't run before, right?
Yeah.
So it's everyone's going to be trying something new. But that was going to be a lot of work, and I opted for other things. So... that's something for the future, maybe, when I have more time and more forethought.
I think we could just do the all Mummy lineup, just because every edition of that
Mummy
is...
first, Mummy second, Resurrection, the Curse.
Yeah, because and if we do Mummy first, we're going to do the scenario Highway to Hell in the back of the book, where if you fail, you become a servant to a Dark Lord for possibly centuries. It's also half LARP.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, why did we not do this time?
Is
it too late to change the schedule for Alexandria Game
I just think
Library?
I'm not brave enough. I just like the idea that someone will... the sheer amount of the starting character sheet that is unusable in any scenario, where you're like, okay, I have agriculture, pyramid construction, not even architecture, pyramid construction.
I mean, how hard is it to make a pyramid? I mean, comparatively, we're sitting in this convention
That's
center.
the kind of attitude that gets you ziggurats.
There's
That's all I'm saying.
There's girders that I don't know what these are doing. Pyramid, you put one brick on top of another and make a triangle.
And then you got to make it nice and slanty.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you're bringing this up. That is very strangely inefficient bracing for the structure.
Yeah.
But anyway, that doesn't make for good radio. Getting back to the World of Darkness.
But and so we are in the position of presenting these games where the newest version is the 20th anniversary edition, which at least for Mage would now be the 30th anniversary edition. And presenting that alongside Tales from the Loop, Dragonbane, Eldritch Automata V5, and these other things that have kind of been geared towards, I don't want to say necessarily modern sensibilities, but has been more recently designed and can incorporate some of those technologies into it. So, like, I wonder if it's just old enough that we're getting a retro hit and people are enjoying it from that, or why do you think it's been so successful in having people like blow the doors off of some of these games?
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting because one of the games that I'll be running in about 30 minutes is Vampire the Masquerade, first edition, 1991 edition, set in 1991, and no one signed up for it in pre-reg. Absolutely no one. I was looking at that list, and I was like, oh, man. Maybe I'll get the night off. Who knows?
Yeah.
But now it's
there's a wait list.
The wait list is gone. It's every ticket has been taken. It's a lot of interest. So we'll see how it goes. But I think it is that kind of retro feel, that kind of nostalgia for some people. Other people are just like, wait, I've never played the first one.
Yeah.
What's it going to be like? So they're ready to buckle up, throw their cell phones in the drawer, and use a payphone.
What if their cell phone is a large purse-sized leatherette plug-in?
That took two-stroke oil.
We'll talk about it. They're all Resource 1, or maybe Resource 2, so they probably don't have a cell phone. Maybe the Resource 2, I'll let them have a car phone, perhaps.
Okay,
you know? That's pretty thematic for back in those days.
You're like, here's my fax number. Yeah.
Yes. That's what I'm seeing from a vampire standpoint with VTM 1991. I'll be interested to hear about Changeling a little bit and other things.
The interesting thing, so I've spent my day running around doing on-the-spot interviews in the expo hall with various Fae-flavored TTRPG creators, all of whom were lovely, very tiring. But when I would explain Changeling the podcast and why I was interested in their games, I would say, oh, well, are you familiar with Changeling? And the answers ranged from, yeah, I'm a little bit familiar too. Oh my God, I love it so much. It was amazing. So I think that even now for Changeling, also almost 30 years later since it came out, the ideas in it have percolated into the ecosystem of role-playing games in a way that is noticeable. So now when you do see a Fae-flavored game, it does tend to have themes of duality. It does tend to be balancing the human against the Fae. There are elements of dreams and nightmare and other worlds and imagination that, there are bits of that in other media, but Changeling the Dreaming really kind of crystallized them in a way that I think other game creators have found very useful.
I was talking to a gentleman behind the game Fifth Conspiracy, which takes place in a urban fantasy setting where the beliefs of people shape the abilities of the supernatural and what they are capable of.
Impossible.
And I'm like, have you heard Mage? He's like, oh yeah, I love that game. I'm like, oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Because like what I'm waiting for is that point where someone makes their Changeling game and has never heard of it.
Yeah.
And when you were saying like the range, I was expecting you to go from, I kind of heard of it, to like Ian Lemke killed my brother or something like that. Not that it would have a positive top, but like this terrible floor beneath it. But like we're going to hit that point where like in the same way that most people at this point that are familiar with things informed by Vampire the Masquerade haven't necessarily read Anne Rice. I mean, I do a Mage podcast and I haven't even read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. So
are you missing much, Jerry?
I don't feel that to be the case, but yeah, I wonder when we get that simulation and simulacrum level where the thing has no tie to what the original bit is. The other thing that I'm kind of curious about is like, how much is this just the fact that like at a convention with 10,000, 15,000 people, however many people are at PAX, like that's just a sign of how starved people are for RPGs.
Yeah.
Like I almost want to have like a control group where I'm like, okay, we're going to play, I can't even say like trench coats and katanas. Like, I would need to come up with, we're going to do World of Darkness Mortals. Like, I would need to try and come up with something that could just be...
So you want that for your control. I'm wondering if you just have the mystery game. Sign up.
Okay.
You don't know what you're going to play.
That would
You
be a
just
good
know
one.
it's a role-playing game.
Yeah.
I think that's the ultimate control.
One, I think that's reasonable. Two,
Yeah.
that's genius. Because as I was preparing for today, last night, Jenna was mocking me and my preparation style the entire time, like mercilessly. I'm just glad that Old World of Darkness does not have like willpower damage, or I would have been gone. But one recommendation she had, she's like, you like Invisible Sun. I pointed out literally the 3 Invisible Sun cubes I had because she had failed to see the 2 that were still new in box. And it would be great if I sat down, unfolded the cube, and then like pulled Mage out of that or something like that. And then the Mage book turns out to be hollow, and I open that up.
Oh, yeah.
And it just keeps going. And then finally there's a thumb drive in it that can...
The actual game.
Exactly. But yeah, like I like the idea. I like the idea of the mystery game mostly because then I can do that RPG. And like the Alexandria game library is one of the few things that makes me go, yeah, I guess you have more RPG books than me.
Yeah. You know, I years ago, I wanted to start up at like an RPG book museum because I had so many.
Yeah.
I had 300, 400, something like that. And I was like, just turn this into a museum in a basement, something like that. And then I met them at the Alexandria Game Library, and I'm like, well, they're already doing it.
Did you do TriadCon?
No, I've not. Wait, have I?
Yeah,
No.
and you ran Demon for it. You ran Demon.
That was a TriadCon?
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Yeah, that was a great game.
Yeah.
But just to your point about like the mystery game, like wasn't that kind of the purpose?
And I'd like to do it again. The thing I really liked about TriadCon was I think it had a really good ratio of front end game time played to prep time and logistics time. That was one of those ones where like it probably didn't take me more than 80 hours to do almost all the setup combined. And in the end, we had a little bit shy of 800 player hours. I think it was about 650. I did the math on that one. And because about 800 is when you start getting like free stuff from publishers where they'll start being like, oh, you have this many player hours. If someone runs the game, here's a copy. Or something like that. Yeah, so that was the one. Some have it a little bit higher. Like at 1,600, I think Monty Cook will just start sending you box product to have as like as a promotional item or something like that.
So clearly what we need is like a mass Invisible Sun weekend.
Yep, that's it.
That is, I don't know how I would do Invisible Sun as a one-shot. I mean, you could just do the neighborhood construction part and then just be like, and scene.
Could we do a weekend LARP?
I still want to do an Exalted LARP where everyone gets a token that they get to turn in, and a wire team helps them do like one Wuxia thing. So so you turn in your token, and you're like, Mr. A, what would you like? And you're like, okay, I need to do a flying spin kick.
Yeah.
Literally across this entire auditorium.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
And they bring the gantry out, and they suit you up, they give you the helmet, and you get to declare like, by the power of the unconquered sun, or something like that. And you just get to, and like,
Now, we do laugh, but Terry does know a lot about insurance, so he could probably pull this off.
True.
I mean, that would be a GL policy. It would be temporary event. There's a term of art for it if you like want to rent out a bouncy castle. And I think that would be the closest to this. Like if you want to have an event that has a bouncy castle, and what you would need in the state of Pennsylvania is you would need someone who is amusement certified, who I know. So I've got that on lockdown. So I think we could get an insurance policy probably for under $600 if it were a one day, or $1,200 for a weekend.
I have to imagine there's a slightly different tier for wire work.
No, not really.
Really?
It's really just put into these broad chunks. It would be something like amusement, interactive, and then mild, moderate, severe, safety. And this would be, the key would be if you would need to stay under, I can't remember if it's 6 or 10 feet off the ground. So no monkey leap technique. That would be that would be great
right.
if we went through and we had to ban certain charms.
Yes.
based on.
Too dangerous for insurance.
I just want to have craftsmen need no tools and have a like bespoke shipbuilding service ready for me. So I can just like make a boat. And then...
Love it. All right, so we talked about Vampire, we talked about Changeling, we've kind of talked about Mage. Are there any other games that we are going to be running here?
I'm doing Lost,
Okay.
which is a
Changeling
separate
Lost,
kind
yeah,
of change.
yeah.
But I mean, to the basic point, I think it takes very little work to kind of really shave the complicated corners off the system.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, trait plus trait against either a static number if it's Chronicles or a moving number if it's OWOD is pretty easy. The hardest thing for me is to remember to state the difficulty every time.
Yeah, so what I usually do is I kind of give them a default difficulty.
Yeah.
For Vampire, I'm just going to say 6.
Yeah.
Because the way this system is set up. But for other games, I usually say 7, actually, as my default. Maybe that's a little too harsh. Who knows? But yeah, I usually say if I don't tell you the difficulty, it's probably 7.
The biggest problem I've run into with running convention games is people know just enough about the world of darkness that they're like, zeros do something cool. And I'm like, no, not actually.
No.
In almost no case does that 0 mean anything.
No.
Ones will still bone you, but that 0 don't mean
Yep.
anything special. So part of me wants to go with like exalted rules. Just increase the difficulty by 1 on everything, but zeros count as 2 successes or something like that.
Yep.
So
having run the game today, and I mean, this is the first time I'm running convention games, so I'm a little bit petrified. But how do you, when you start off, I assume you had players today, for example, who had never played Mage.
no one there had ever played Mage the Ascension before.
How many of them knew vague things about it?
One person had played Werewolf before.
Okay, so in that kind of scenario, how do you elevator pitch it or kind of give the broad strokes enough to draw them in? Like, clearly they've signed up for it, they have some kind of interest, but beyond that.
For me, the elevator pitch I say is this takes place in a world very much like our own, except for there will be no sexual assault, children will have no harm, animals will go uninjured, and no one will get dead named, which at some point I go, in which way is this world dark compared to ours? So, but basically the pitch is certain people have the ability to change reality. We call this magic, but that ability will work along with any methodology that you can think of. Charismatic faith healing, psychic surgery, medical nanites, all of them will do that. Any type of wizard that you can think of or hypertech that you've seen presented in media will work in this setting. The problem is if other people don't think it will, it gets a little bit harder. And like once you give people enough to be like, I'm this kind of wizard, they're off to the races with it. It takes a couple of goes to explain how focus works. And I've come down to, before the cool thing happens, your character has to do something. And those two things need to be tied in some way. And that tends to be the hardest. But I mean, that's the hardest part of Mage anyway. I do give a quick reference for the rules. I give a walkthrough step for Magic. Utterly unlooked at the entire time.
Yeah.
So what I've taken to is walking through. The way I have it done for this one is I don't like pre-gens because I hate being the last person that sits down at a table and they're like, you're the retired spinster. And I'm like, okay, I can step into this real easy.
You know how I solve that, though? You just print an extra, pre-gen, so you've got 2 options for them.
Well,
and they can pick the one they prefer.
For the longest time, I just provided 8, and if my game was restricted to 5.
Great.
But
Just
the way
tons
I
of
have
options,
it,
then.
But what I ultimately did for this one is the characters, it's kind of done as a draft. The characters choose a card that has all their attribute and ability dots on it. And it has a catchy name like Renegade Academic, a Retired Priest, PTA Conspiracy Theorist, or something that's kind of like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And that gives you your dots. The next thing you do is you pick your spheres. And I have a whole bunch of cards.
Get to pick the spheres.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have a whole bunch of cards, nothing above 3.
Interesting.
4 is
and
where
then
it
you
goes
have
up there.
them fill out the sheet right there. Boop, boop, boop.
And then
Okay.
they pick a practice card that says, generally, how do you do your magic? And it'll be something like hypertech, higher power, ritual, story weaving, something like that. Then they get to pick 1 or 2 other cards. They get a wonder, which is just basically a one-shot item that does something super cool, and they get a background of some sort, a background or a merit. So like some person might get arcane, someone gets police connections. Yeah. And so earlier today, I had a character that was a renegade cyborg, but whose paradigm was all about the saving power of Jesus. They also picked past lives as
awesome. Yeah, that's really unique and cool.
And they're like, yeah, I was a different cyborg before, but I was clearly reformatted, but sometimes those memories pop up.
That's pretty rad.
For
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. And so
I like that. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a choice.
Yeah, I'd have to think about how to do that for other games. Obviously,
It was
Mage
super
with
easy
its-
for Hunter.
Sure, yeah, Hunter's
Yeah,
definitely
but
a
I
good
mean,
one.
it reminds me of when you hear a kid and be like, "Oh, what do you want to be for Halloween?" And they're like, "Astronaut Princess." Like now you get to play that at my game. So
Yeah, certainly. You might be able to do that for Changeling as well, right?
Yeah, and I'm kind of regretting just making pre-gens now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the other thing for me is like the secret thing is I as a person, it's really hard for me to run more than, let's say, 2.5 hours of active gaming. That's kind of where like that's the point where I would want to stop and see what the state of play is and be like, okay, this is what I want to have happen next session.
Yeah.
So when people talk about these epic 5 or 8 hour sessions, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And this draft, it takes about an hour, pretty well an hour on the button. The other thing is I hate being railroaded. So once that is, I give you 4 antagonists that you have the choice of. So now that you have your character, you get to look at the antagonists and go, who would my character have a problem with? Like this persona that I built. And then we have a questions where you have a bunch of leading questions like 2 characters at the table share the same mundane hobby. What is it? And stuff like that. And then we play. And by the end of it, most people have some sense of attachment to the character. So far, it took me a little bit to like dial in the selected cards. Some seemed really constricting. Others, people were taking it in a wildly different direction where I'm like, this isn't quite Mage. What can I do for it? But I at this point, I've run this new all draft version 3 times, and I've been pretty pleased with it.
If I can suggest an idea, the way you're describing it sounds like to me that you're tapping into something that Mage has an advantage of, where it is very character driven, and all the World of Darkness games are character driven to an extent, but in Mage the character variability is a lot more mechanized than I would say in Vampire or even in Changeling. So that it's an elegant way to do it, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, one of the problems, obviously, with the World of Darkness cool powers in some cases is that they are very much based off of your attributes. So, if you have that situation, I picked these specific vampire disciplines or these gifts for werewolf, and they don't work with the stats I got, for example. So that could be a challenge with some of the systems. But I think, for Mage, Hunter as well, that's really good.
And to me, the way I would do it, it'd be something like if you picked an ability set, like you can swap 2 values where it's like, oh, I have the 4 over here and I have the 2 over here. I can swap these 2. But then that starts chipping away at what the character concept is.
It could just cause inefficiencies and confusion.
Or you would modify to me the abilities to be like 3+ or for 3+ power stat or something like that. I think there would be ways to get to that.
Yeah. Certainly, though, you could link it up. Maybe you have all the dots as one option, and then other things like nature and demeanor and such things. That's where you have another X axis that you're
I haven't figured out
of.
how to introduce nature and demeanor into this. Just
I'll let you know how it works in 10 minutes, 21 minutes.
But the thing that was useful when I was doing Hunter is you have I can't remember if it's drive or conviction, but basically the condition where you regain willpower, and but those are broken down not into nature and demeanor, but kind of like your role in the group, the planner, the executioner, the contingency guy or something like that. So I could do that, but I just give everyone 4 willpower, drive it like you stole it. Everyone starts with 2 quintessence, have fun, who cares?
Yep.
And the key thing is the fact that very quickly the characters are like, oh shit, I can use magic for fucking everything. And I'm like, yes, you can. Feature, not bug.
Permadox, who cares? You won't be here next session.
Yeah, well, the big thing is I sell them if they do something vulgar, they get a point of paradox. As paradox accrues, the world will start to be a little bit weirder, but at 3, it's going to start actively impeding them in some way, shape, or form. And that's kind of how I do paradox. And the other thing is in Mage, like the other magic balancing factor is my scenario is set in an area where there are theoretically a lot of witnesses and someone can call the cops. So
Makes it difficult. Well, I think we should start wrapping this up.
Okay.
But I did want to ask Pooka a little bit about the Mage the Sorcerer's Crusade scenario, because I've never heard of anyone playing it.
I've never heard of anyone running it.
Yeah. So it's really
I've
exciting
never
to
even
hear
heard of the
about.
game.
So maybe as we start closing out, maybe we can just get a little teaser of what's going to be going on in that.
So I shamelessly stole from, I want to say it's the Companion. It might be the Swashbuckler's Handbook, where they point to Shakespeare as inspiration.
Okay.
And it's just straight up Hamlet.
Perfect.
Let me be clear. It is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, the 60s existentialist send up to Hamlet by Tom Stoppard, which is one of my favorite plays of all
Friend
time.
of the show, Tom Stoppard.
Yeah, honestly, he should be.
Yes.
But yeah, so I mean, I did pre-gens that are archetypes from Shakespeare characters from various plays, because I mean, all of the characters are so archetypal in a way, and then dropping them into Hamlet, they are courtiers as well as low-powered mages. I gave them all Arete 3 and 1 sphere at 3, 1 sphere at 2, 1 sphere at 1.
Cool.
Seemed reasonable. Diversity of, there's a high guilder, there's a craft mason, there's a hermetic, and then essentially 5 scenes going through the 5 acts of Hamlet. The players, as in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, are kind of the rival mages, and they're sort of aware of what's going on and manipulating things. I'm like giving the plot away, but I doubt anyone's going to overhear this as we say it. And yeah, they decide whether to stop them or work with them to make that story. Because it's one of those stories that I think everyone who comes to the table will know roughly what it is.
Yeah, I love it. That sounds awesome.
So. But beyond that, I mean, the challenge is
Wait, when are you running this? Maybe I have time tomorrow.
Tomorrow night, yeah.
And when you say there's something rotten in Denmark, you being Pook, you are doing the entire session in Danish, correct?
I would love to.
Yeah, okay.
But to your point, Terry, about the mummy character sheet being difficult. Sorcerer's Crusade. Like, well, I guess I'll give this character 2 dots in writing.
Yeah.
So that's a thing.
It could be a chase.
Yeah, all my characters are stupidly powered. They have Arete of 4 and 5. They've got 12 dots and spheres. No one knows what they're doing.
Oh, sure.
So you're just going to power through. Like, I hate the game where you sit down and you're like, you're a turd farmer. And it's like...
I love turd farmer games, all right? You back off.
This is a good thing. It's like, this is a courtly intrigue game.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't want... The Hermetic can make a fireball. And I will point out to them that they can make a fireball. They're the only one. They have Forces 3 and Pride 2.
Ye Old Fireball, I believe.
Ye Old Fire.
In Sorcerer's Crusade.
Yes. But I'm going to give them like a few roasts and say like, here's some tricks you can do.
Yeah.
And it's Hamlet. You don't want fireballs flying around, probably. So trying to like find ways to make it engaging, but still maintaining that subtlety. Because that's what I love about Mage, is that you can have like uncanniness. That's the way I like to run it and play it. So.
The last game I had ended when the characters had just slain their opponent, and after they had just awoken a pipe organ elemental that was now brought into existence, whose creator was now dead, and the pipe organ elemental was like, what the dink do I do now? Pardon me, a pipe organ golem would be more appropriate, a pipe organ construct.
Fun.
So one of them's like, well, I think we need to cross country and solve mysteries. One guy was talking about how he was recording the entire thing, and like these were the sections of the adventure that were going to go onto YouTube, and how he had collected all of the hair of the now deceased nemesis and was convinced that he was going to help this person rebuild their life because obviously their essence was truly in their hair. And I'm like, you know Mage better than me now. You have captured something. As Monica Specca puts it, outsider art is the best.
Yeah.
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 Are there games now, I mean, talking about the World of Darkness games being old and decrepit, are there games in the modern ecosystem that kind of regularly, I mean, Invisible Sun certainly hits that territory, but like...
Invisible Sun set up built a house there.
Yeah, but how many games really do that now? Do
that kind of weird? I don't know. I'm thinking, I'm going through my mental shelf, and that kind of off-the-wallness has left urban fantasy, and in a lot of cases is now back either in a more action milieu or has gone to fantasy. So yeah, we don't seem to have as many of those. Like something like that could kind of happen in Scion, I suppose, but it wouldn't get quite that wacky. Or it would be wacky in a different way that would probably be disrespectful to a major world religion.
Yeah, I wonder if, I wonder if like with Curseborn's use of liminal spaces and things, you could have a lot of really bizarre and wacky things. Certainly, I don't know if that's going to be baked into the game though, or if it's just more like this could be an option.
Yeah,
it's certainly baked into the advertising. So.
And I think it can do bizarre, but I don't know if it can do what I would call kooky.
Yeah. Where it doesn't have marauders and stuff like that.
Yeah. But shall we regather maybe Sunday and do a postmortem and see how our little adventure, thing went?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
After we're through the ringer.
I guess detention is closed.
Detention is closed. I've been your principal, Mike, from Darker Days Radio.
I've been your vice principal, from Mage the Podcast, Terry Robinson, with a mustache and a doctorate, but I still make under $100K a year.
And I've been that weird kid who scrapes the chewing gum off the bottom of the desk and eats it. Pooka. Little
And
nugs,
we have our trigger warning.
Little nugs of latex.
As 2025 draws to a close, an extra special thanks to our executive producers whose support has helped us keep things running through the difficult times. You can join those ranks by signing up for our Patreon at www.patreon.com/magethepodcast and get a shout out at the end of our episodes. I don't really have any cheeky bits to fold into this outro today, just some heartfelt appreciation for all of the following people. Oracle Bad Company, Oracle Buck Gregory, Oracle Christopher Phillips, Oracle Derek Semsick, Oracle Drawncap, Oracle Drunk Dez, Oracle Jason Vines, Oracle Rebecca Poole, Oracle Sean Gallagher, Oracle Spartacus, Oracle The Crew of Erebus, Archmaster Berto, Archmaster Brado the Blue, Archmaster Dan Svensson, Archmaster Glacial Indifference, Archmaster Jeff Waugh, Archmaster Leroy Bryce, Archmaster Morgan Aran, Archmaster Wolf Larryson, Alex, Alexia, Amberversion, Anders S., Ben Bandelo, Blaze Hebert, Bruno Teixeira, Bryce Perry, Bubba the Pale One, Chartan, Sig, Curtis Hendricks, Daniel Cuppen, Daniel Scribner, Darren Hennessy, David Roy, Ian Robertson, EBG, Eric Schwenk, George Lara, Gray Charlie H., Guy Stewart, Ia Bull, Jade Barroth, James B., Jason Kennedy, Jenna F., Jeremy Z., Jarvis Johnson, Kathleen Halperin, Kevin Fitzpatrick, Chris Kinner, Leslie Weatherstone, Laws and Stuff, Lauren Jensen, Manel Canos, Matthew Proyle, Maurice Hopkins, Melissa Krause, Michael Parker, Nabero, Nikita Klamanoff, Patrick McNamara, Rob H., Ryan Kendi, Ryan Stray, Samuel Tobin, Zephanessis, Starfish, Stephen Carton, Tyler Bryan, and Will Vincent. If you super liked this episode or super didn't, drop us a line at magethepodcast@gmail.com or talk to us at magethepodcast.bisky.social on Blue Sky. We have a Hop in Discord community at discord.me/magethepodcast. If you like us, please give us a review on the platform of your choosing or tell a friend about us. Also go to magethepodcast.com for show notes and all of our previous shows. The road is long and ascension awaits.